How goes? Welcome back. Welcome to a ranking video, everyone. This one's for Pink Floyd. This one's a long time in the making. Obviously, I've been thinking of doing this one for about a year, or whenever I started doing these, because Pink Floyd is one of my all-time favorite groups. Of course, formed in the 60s with Syd Barrett, Roger Waters, and Rick Wright, and Nick Mason. And then, of course, for a very brief point in time, they had Sid and David Gilmour joining on, and then it just went right into David, and then eventually Roger left, and it was just David, Nick, and Rick until the end when they disbanded. Um, so yeah, let's get into it. So first up we have the More soundtrack, or just More. It's a soundtrack from the film More. Pink Floyd. Music played and composed by. And this one is an interesting one. I think it's far away the worst one, but please know I still actually do like this album. I think that a lot of these songs kind of shine more on bootlegs and live performances and stuff like that. And yeah, so we've got the Nile song. Waters is already taking over writing on a lot of these tunes. So you've got Cymbeline, which is, again, better live than on the record, but it's still a cool song. Green is the Color. Yeah, Beats a Bar, which was covered by Replicants in the 90s, which, of course, was a Greg Edwards and Ken Andrews, project. So yeah, beauty album art. I really like the album art, actually. But you know, it's a soundtrack, so it's more of a soundtrack than an album, but it still doubles as a Pink Floyd album. I should say too that that's number 17, and we're not going to include the Zabriskie Point soundtrack because it's Pink Floyd and other people. It's not just Pink Floyd. Number 16, the live record, Delicate Sound of Thunder. This may seem a little low for some people, but I don't find this is quite as good as Pulse, which we'll see later, which is not really a spoiler alert for anyone that knows Pink Floyd. And this is the reissue that came out a little while ago. I've always wanted to get this one on vinyl. I've had the CD, of course, for years and decades. Yeah, they did a beautiful job of it, and it's still a nice set list and everything. It's very Momentary Lapse of Reason heavy, especially the first set, and then they do much of the greatest hits that people wanted to hear at the time. But I don't find the performances quite full of life as Pulse, and I don't like the set list quite as much. And some of the, David gets great players, but sometimes like the sax is a little off, and it's not quite as good as the Pulse stuff. Number 15 is going to be the newest one, The Endless River. So in a way their last album, but in a way kind of just leftovers from the Division Bell sessions. But, I'm ranking at 15, which seems low, but it's a nice listen. It's, really chilled out Pink Floyd. Yeah. No words. It's all instrumental until the very last track, Louder Than Words. A lot of it does sound like Division Bell era, obviously. Like, these are leftovers, per se. Some of it's really beautiful. I just love that this was released during my lifetime, 2014, and that I could go out and get a Pink Floyd record day one. Like, that to me is amazing, because when Division Bell came out, I was in elementary school, grade 1 or something like that. Didn't know who Pink Floyd was till about grade 9 or 10. So yeah, obviously by then it's David, Rick, and Nick, so it was awesome to hear some more Rick stuff when this came out. And I even like the album art. I know a lot of people don't like it and go, oh, Storm Thorgerson would have done much better, but the guy that did this was a really young guy, and I can't remember his name right now, but I think he did a great job. The album cover is whimsical, and I don't know, kind of reminds me of like Life of Pi or something like that. Even though obviously they weren't in the clouds in Life of Pi, but it kind of has that feeling, like very mysterious. So number 14 is going to be Amagama, which is a very interesting record. This is kind of when the band was kind of floundering between having Sid as their visionary lead and then kind of going like, what do we do now? So they did a live album. This is half live, half studio, and the studio album is all split into kind of solo works. So side 1 and 2 are psychedelic, trips, very long songs, very psychedelic, maybe the most psychedelic this group got. And side 3 is half Richard Wright's Sisyphus, great name, not really. Parts 1 through 4, which is, beautiful, weird, it's good. Roger Waters then does Grantchester Meadows, which is quite pretty, and then several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a pict, which is just crazy sounds in that. And then very avant-garde. And then side 4 is The Narrow Way, which is extremely underrated stuff from David Gilmour. And then Nick Mason does the Grand Vizier's Garden Party. So they pulled a Kiss long before Kiss, and kind of, instead of doing a Pink Floyd stuff, they did like solo works unified as Pink Floyd. So it's all very avant-garde and trippy, and yeah. This one, don't worry, I am very familiar with this record, but it hasn't been opened yet, so it's still got the hype sticker on it. And as soon as I realized this, I said to myself, I gotta play this one tonight if I have time, or tomorrow. And yeah, it's a good record. I think it only ranks so low because the Allen Psychedelic Breakfast is something that you don't really have to hear over and over. It's not essential. And yeah, but the material that's here is great. The Atom Heart Mother, Huge Suite, which takes up the whole first side, is kind of a precursor to Echoes. And, it's weird, and it's got, like, a whole orchestration going on, and a choir making all these weird noises, kind of. So yeah, it's very avant-garde, it's very cool, doesn't really get old in my opinion. If is a nice tender track. Summer 68, a lot of people wouldn't say this, but I think it's the highlight. It's got a great chorus and wonderful song. A lot of people's highlight is Fat Old Sun, which is a nice David Gilmour piece. So, and yeah, you gotta love the fact they just went out and photographed a cow, and the record label thought they were crazy, and yeah, they said, sorry, that's the album art, put it out. Next up is Division Bell, which has many variants of this cover. Here's another one. I think this is the 20... It's not the most recent reissue. I actually have the newest reissue on Pink Floyd Records. A lot of these vinyl, I'm a little too into Pink Floyd. I have some of these on... I have them all on CD, and then I have some multiple times on record. The only one I don't own multiple times is the Endless River. I just have that deluxe package CD. I don't even have the vinyl of it. I have the vinyl of every other one. Yeah, so the Division Bell is, of course, the last full studio record, Endless River not counting, and it's David. David led. David and Polly Sampson did all the lyrics and all that. There is a Richard Wright piece on here called Wearing the Inside Out. And highlights, of course, Coming Back to Life is amazing and soaring and life-affirming. Definitely one of the best latter-day Floyd tracks. Also, Keep Talking, which has Stephen Hawking on it, and just devastating verses, amazing chorus, great guitars. You know, a lot of people say this one's too safe. You know, this one has its haters, but it has its supporters. I'm definitely a supporter. I love it. I think David's playing is beautiful. A lot of people go, oh, he's playing it too safe. I really don't think so. You know, just check out Pulls Apart. How's that safe? Like, I don't know. I think this is a great record. I don't think Pink Floyd ever got lazy. They just kept changing. And yeah, great record. Just really great. A lot of people wouldn't put this one ahead of it, but I've always really liked this one, even with the 80s production. This one is, of course, Momentary Lapse of Reason. I think this one just flows really well. You know, like, the singles Learning to Fly and On the Turning Away are great, but this one kind of begs to be played all at once, I think. Sorrow is a great Pink Floyd track, even better live because it's got electronic drums in the studio one. I think it benefits even more from having Nick Mason play. One Slip is a great underrated Floyd one. Dogs of War is one that I think was voted by some publication or internet fan site as the worst Pink Floyd song of all time, but it's pretty good. A lot of people say it's David trying to be too angry, or trying to kind of channel what, you know, Roger would write and have David sing, but I think it's a good enough song. I really like it, actually. I think the whole thing is a really solid record. I think the only reason why I rank it ahead of the Division Bell is it's a little shorter, less bloated, I guess, and it's also a little more consistent. I think the Division Bell is an absolutely amazing record, but I don't think a couple of the tracks rank quite as highly, and that's A Great Day for Freedom, and maybe the Richard Wright one, even though I really, really like it. But yeah, I just think the consistency of that one makes it rank a little higher. Next up is going to be The Final Cut, and please know I absolutely love this record. Pink Floyd are one of the hardest bands to rank on planet Earth, especially if you like all the eras, like the Syd Barrett era, the Roger era, and the David era. Yeah, it's an amazing record. There's a tribute band that plays around town, and the guy that plays the David Gilmour part, this is his favorite Pink Floyd record, ironically, because this is probably the one that David would not touch with a 10-foot pole. But, you know, it's kind of like, it should be a Roger record. I mean, you know, Nick and Rick, their roles were kind of floundering. I think Roger kind of destroyed their self-confidence. He fired one of them. David was left on, but kind of is more of a producer. And he does sing Not Now, John, but he doesn't sing any of the other ones. And of course, his great guitar work is here throughout, but David always used great guitarists to his in his solo works, like, you know, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, you know, they all played with the guy. And yeah, someone asked me in the comments last time, or on the Roger video, how this would rank if it was put out as a Roger solo record, which it probably should have. It just wouldn't sell as well, unfortunately. And I said probably number 2. And you know, it's a testament to what a great record this is. I would probably just put it behind Amused to Death. It seems like it's ranked a little low in the Pink Floyd discography here, but I still love it. It's a devastating record. I think songs like The Gunner's Dream, you know, that's a 5 out of 5 or whatever. The Final Cut, the title track, of course. Two Suns in a Sunset. Two Suns in the Sunset is amazing. Yeah, it's a great one. Next up is going to be Obscured by Clouds, which is technically also a soundtrack, music from La Vallée, and which is a really, I don't know, kind of hard to watch movie. It's, to me, a little meandering, but man, the soundtrack is amazing. Especially when this is reissued. I think the sound of this record comes off really well. It's got a really warm sound to it. The instrumentals are absolutely beautiful, and the stuff that's predominantly David's sung is great, like Childhood's End. Free For is of course Roger Waters, and that was issued as a single rather, not a solo. And Stay by Waters and Wright actually wrote it together, but Richard Wright sings it, and it does kind of sound more like a Richard Wright tune. He kind of has his own style of writing. I think that's one of his best leads ever on a solo. I keep saying solo on a Pink Floyd record, rather. I think that's one of his best leads. And absolutely Curtains. I don't know what's going on in that track. I love it. It's just it's out there, man. It's really cool. I think a lot of people don't appreciate that one. I don't know what they're doing, but I love it. And then there's the weird chants at the end that, I don't know if it's discomforting or comforting, but it's there anyway. So next up, this seems pretty high for a live album to be ranked, but I'm gonna put Pulse here. This big boy, big chunky fella. I love Pulse. I remember getting it completely legally, of course, in an album wrap form online, and like the next week I was out with my pocket money, as we called it when I was a kid, to buy the CD set of it, and that one got a lot of play when I was a kid. I loved the CD, so when this was finally put out on record, I was so happy in 2018. This one, I just think the set list is more interesting than Delicate Sound of Thunder, and I said that already, and I like that they did Dark Side of the Moon in its entirety. Of course, Roger wasn't there. That's probably the only thing that could make this a better record, is if Roger was back, but, that was a kind of When Pigs Fly type thing by this point. I also love how they dusted off Astronomy Domine by this point. That great old Sid led tune. And Shine On is amazing. The Comfortably Numb performance. A lot of people have been praising the Delicate Sound of Thunder one, and I really like that one, but I really like the Pulse one better. I think the solo is just one of the most chilling solos of all time. I remember watching the DVD version, and then later when they posted it on YouTube, like, it's probably the most watched live performance for me. That guitar solo is absolutely stellar, one of the best of all time. I believe we're at 7 now. It's easy to lose count, but 7 is going to be The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. And when I was first getting into Pink Floyd, I wouldn't have ranked this quite as high, but I really, over the years, started to see the influence. And when I got it as a teen, Astronomy Domine was the one that really stood out to me. And then Lucifer Sam and Interstellar Overdrive, the instrumental. But as time went on, I really started to appreciate the whimsical nature of it, and the, brilliant but innocent songwriting, and, Sid's Wind in the Willows influence, and, all the sounds on the record, which would influence the rest of Floyd's career, even though the music really changed. There was always that Sid influence going forward, and, what an amazing guy Sid Barrett was. It's just too bad what happened to him, and it would have been so interesting to see, if he was mentally able to stay with the band, what they would have done. It's kind of a blessing and a curse. We wouldn't have Wish You Were Here and all those great records, but, what would we have? What kind of band would have Pink Floyd been? And just an interesting thought, but it's got to be one of the best debut records of all time. I really believe that, This and Led Zeppelin 1, and some bands don't come onto the scene that strongly. They have to build towards it, and but yeah, even though their sound changed drastically, I think Pink Floyd has one of the best debut albums of all time. But unlike most people, I would rank the sophomore record just a little higher, and this, I think, is Nick Mason's favorite Pink Floyd record, which makes sense because he did the whole Nick Mason Saucerful of Secrets band later on, which celebrated, this kind of era, the the 67 to kind of 1970 era, which was a very prolific period. They did so much different stuff in that very short time. They evolved so quickly, like almost like the Beatles. Such a rapid evolution, and the material changed so much. This is one of the few records where everyone's writing kind of equal parts, and it's not just the Roger-led machine yet. Roger gets sole writing credit for 3 of the songs, and Richard gets a couple. His ones are really poppy and kind of continue on from what Sid started. Of course, there's one Sid track on here, Jug Band Blues, which is just heartbreaking. Great avant-garde piece. And he does play guitar on, I think it's Remember a Day. I don't think it's Seesaw. So he is sort of around for this record, but this is a really weird transitional phase where David's in and Sid's in but on his way out. And a lot of their audience was kind of like, what's going on? It would have been a really confusing time to be a Pink Floyd fan, but Let There Be Light, what a great opening song. I love that one, and I always have. Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun is definitely a early career highlight, and the instrumental Saucerful of Secrets is, it's stellar. It's great. I think only the Live in Pompeii version trumps this one. I really like that song a lot. What are we up to now? Is it 5? Yeah. So 5, The Wall. And if you asked me 10 years ago, The Wall would have been ranked about 12, and you're thinking, you don't know what you're talking about, and what a band fan, and you don't know, why didn't you appreciate The Wall? I still like The Wall, but I would have ranked it at around 12 at the time, because it's not quite as consistent as some of the other albums, but I think I appreciate the narrative more and more as I grow up, and I always loved Run Like Hell. I always loved Comfortably Numb and Hey You and Young Lust, and the first few songs that I can never play in the flesh without following it up with the Thin Ice, without following it up until you get to about Mother. I always have to play the whole first bit of the album because it just flows so well. It's so beautiful, and there are, of course, live versions of this by both the band and Roger Waters, and I'm not putting the Is There Anybody Out There live recording in like I did the other ones because it's an archival release. It didn't come out at the time in 1980, but I think no matter what, the studio album is the way to listen to it. There's benefits to all the live versions too, and it's fun to compare them all, but I think that, the studio version wins, and what a masterwork by the group. Next up is Metal, and I think Metal only trumps The Wall, in my opinion, because of Echoes. And I don't know why I brought out this version, but I own Metal about 4 different times, but this cover is different than the one you usually see circulating. So obviously Echoes makes this one stand out. Echoes is one of the most brilliant pieces of music of all time in this guy's opinion. And I'm talking about me, not this guy, but Echoes is absolutely stellar. Just an interstellar, great piece. It elicits thoughts of, underwater just as much as outer space. They're kind of singing about, deep in the sea for the first stanza, but then it gets more kind of existential and interstellar as it goes on, and there's definitely a lot of kind of space elements to it. It's the closest they got to a classical piece, in my opinion, though you could argue Atom Heart Mother or maybe A Saucerful of Secrets, but it's a really, they were never really a prog band, but it's close to a prog one. One of These Days, what a great intro track. Pillow of Winds is delicate and sweet. Fearless, great underrated piece. And Saint-Tropez is fun. But this one wouldn't rank quite as high if Echoes wasn't on it. As much as I love One of These Days and Fearless, it would probably rank around 8, but Echoes, one track makes it go up that much because that's side 2. Echoes is side 2. It's, what is it, 21 minutes? I'm so bad with durations of tracks because I never sit there looking at the time, especially if I'm enjoying myself. So number 3 will be The Wall, or not The Wall, The Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah, obviously one of the most famous records of all time, and as overplayed as it is on the radio and blah blah blah, I still think it's like the perfect album. I'm so sorry I can't talk today. I got up way too early for work. Yeah, but you go, if it's the perfect album, why isn't it number 1? And for 10 or 12 years, I could have said, switch any of these top 3 out. And I still would say that for the top 2. And even though they're all 5 out of 5 star records, like, these are all masterworks, I did finally decide, like, a year ago or so, okay, Dark Side of the Moon will be number 3. But it doesn't matter. Like, the whole top 3 would be 5 stars. And, you know, I feel like I didn't say that much for The Dark Side of the Moon, but that's because, you know, it's all been told before. But it is perfect, and I find if you get sick of certain music, or if it's overplayed on the radio, not that I'm a big radio listener, you just take a 6-month break, and then if it's actually good stuff, when you come back, you'll like it again. That's how I work, at least. But, you know, now if something is overplayed, it's either because I hear it at work or because I've played it too much, so it would be my own fault. So number, I don't know, I didn't bring out the reissue for this one. Oh, I got this issue, though. So this is how it looked back in the day, and the reissue honors that with the 2 hands shaking, welcome to the machine. And when you open it up, it will look like this. And this is one of the older copies. I think it's the 1975 Canadian copy. It's in good condition. Anyway, Wish You Were Here is probably their best writing, actually, on an album. And, you know, Shine On You Crazy Diamond is one of the greatest songs of all time. Wish You Were Here is true poetry. It's a love song without being a love song. Pink Floyd didn't write love songs, but it's pretty much a tribute to Sid, who was kind of like this, you know, fallen band member. You know, he didn't die, but it's kind of like he did in a way. And he visited them in the studio. It was really eerie. They didn't recognize him. He looked kind of like a ghost. He looked huge. He'd lost some of his hair. The circumstances surrounding it are weird. There's, you know, every song seems to have something to do with Sid somehow. So Wish You Were Here is like the perfect title. But some of the songs are kind of sad dealing with that. And some, like Have a Cigar, are a complete parody on the music industry and all that. Very interesting song. Roy Harper sings instead of David or Roger, which is crazy. Roger still wrote it. By now he was writing all the lyrics. But yeah, you have one of their darkest songs, you know, Welcome to the Machine, which is just kind of crushing and soul-crushing and so eerie and almost alien sounding. One of the band's greatest songs ever. And then you Have a Cigar, which deals with the same subject matter, but kind of in a funny parodying way, like I said earlier. And a great guitar solo by David. And then you have, you know, pure poetry to music with Wish You Were Here, the title song. And it's all bookended by one of the best pieces of all time, Shine On You Crazy Diamond. And, yeah, I mean, what a great record. One of my fellow Pink Floyd fans, friends, this is his favorite, and I could always see why. And I've thought of picking it as my favorite many, many times. But instead, I'll pick, and I do own this. I own an older copy, but I brought out another unsealed copy. It's Animals from 1977. And I think I'm a little bit crazy. I own this 4 times as well. But this is the most recent issue, and I should lay into this because it's not good to keep the plastic wrap on for years at a time. But, you know, there's the pig flying over the Battersea Power Station. They really cleaned up the artwork. It looks really nice on these reissues here. Um, and this is, you know, it's quite a dark album. It kind of ends quite happily, though, surprisingly enough, which doesn't seem like a thing Waters would do, and he wouldn't really do on his concept albums going forward, like The Wall or his solo works. A lot of them end very sadly, actually. But this one, the sheep defeat the dogs at the end, and you know they're free. They march out of obscurity into the dream. But yeah, this one was my number one just because Dogs and Sheep are two of my favorite Floyd songs of all time, and Pigs is no slouch. I love that one. And I'm a guy, I love longer songs. And, you know, these are three super long songs bookended by two very short little songs that kind of go together. And if you have the cassette of this, Pigs on the Wing 1 connects to 2. And it's connected by a nice little Snowy White solo, because Snowy White was part of the touring band way back then. So yeah, get the cassette if you're a collector, just for that reason, because it's really cool how they solved the track sequencing problem. What a problem! But yeah, Dogs is just chilling, soul-crushing. It's 17 minutes. It's one of the greatest pieces of all time. I love it so much. But yeah, it's sad, and it's heavy, heavy stuff for 1977. And, you know, the subject matter is heavy. And Pigs is even more poignant today than it ever was, especially in the Trump era of things. And, you know, Roger was performing at a ton on that last tour, and the best performance, type it into YouTube, is Roger Waters live in Mexico doing it. It's so incredible to witness the crowd's reaction to that one. And even the tribute band I often see, at least till COVID happened, you know, they would always play Pigs as part of their set. Pigs, 3 different ones. And then Sheep, I gotta say, Sheep was one of my gateways to Pink Floyd. My father, who I can credit with getting me into the Floyd, because he had a CD, a really odd compilation called A Collection of Great Dance Songs, which has been reissued, so you can get the vinyl of it as well. And it's just a 5 or 6 song compilation. Doesn't have much on it, but it had Sheep, a re-recording of Money from 81, and One of These Days, as well as some other songs. But those 3 songs made me go, oh my god, what is this? I got to investigate this band. This band is amazing. And I didn't even really quite understand what Sheep was about the first few listens. I probably didn't like research music like I did. I was just discovering it. I was young. I was in grade 10, I believe. And I went, and this is such a thing a teenager would do back then, but I took a CD, I copied it to my computer, I gave it back, and I was just bumping that for the next week. And that's when I decided I gotta purchase some material from this band. And I went to the local record shop that doesn't exist anymore, and I think I was looking for, was it a copy of Animals or Wish You Were Here? But I'm pretty sure it was Dark Side of the Moon that I purchased, because they didn't have the other 2 in at the time. Yeah, and then the next week I went back and bought another Pink Floyd album, and then I got a little bit of money, and the next week I went. And that's how, you know, I collected. And, you know, this is before you could stream everything, and it's kind of like, you know, you'd spend more money back then, but it's kind of like a nicer way to discover things, because you can really soak things up, you know, 1 week. Instead of doing my homework, it's like I'll soak up Pink Floyd, and then I can't wait to go out and get their next one or whatever. So, yeah, anyway. If you watched this far, thank you, and you probably agree with me that, because if you watched half an hour of me rambling about it, you probably agree with me that Pink Floyd is one of the best bands of all time. that's just an opinion, but I really truly think they are. They were so talented, and we were so lucky to have them on this earth. And thankfully, you know, Gilmore, Waters, Mason, they're still walking the earth. So rest in peace, Mr. Wright and Mr. Barrett, and thanks for all the music, all 5 of you guys. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please let me know your favorites. I know that my list is probably kind of controversial in the ordering, but let's just discuss it, and you know, we all have our opinions, and you know, if you rank this one last, you know, that's interesting to me. It's not offensive to me. So yeah, you have to realize that everyone has their own opinions, and yeah, it's just cool that we like this band and love this band, really. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Please take care of yourselves, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.